Welcome to another Self-Matic podcast. This is episode 11, and today we're going to be doing a little bit different. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Brian Huckabee, and of course, I'm joined with the two very best men in the world.
I'm Andrew.
I like how he goes first.
Of course I'm first.
And I'm Steve-O.
That's right. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about lateral thinking. And if you haven't heard about lateral thinking, it's basically just a creative way to think outside the box, and it helps. It's going to help you if you're trying to create something or come up with new ideas. There's ways to train your brain to help you think creatively and stuff like that. And I feel like with this day and age, especially with the Common Core thing, that's what they're trying to push, is creativity in schools.
Yes.
You kind of just, creativity is a really big envelope for you. If you're whatever you're trying to come up with or whatever you're trying to do in life. So lateral thinking, it was coined by a physician named Edward de Bono, I believe his name is pronounced. And this was back in 1967. And like we said, it's out of the box reasoning and critical analysis of scenarios, and it's not just your typical step-by-step process when we went through school, solving math problems.
There's one way and one way only.
Right.
And you always had to show work.
Yeah.
And that was one issue I always had, was I could do everything in my head.
Yeah, me
and
too.
it's I want to see your work. Well, it's the right answer, right?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't matter if it's the right answer. We need to see how you got it, see if you did it right. Well, obviously the answer is right. I did it right.
Right. I mean, unless you were copying, but who does?
What's funny?
Not me.
To chime in real quick, I know it's kind of off subject, but it's funny how our teachers used to always say, you're not going to always have a calculator on you. Right, now look at our phones. Right? look at our phones, dude. Not only is it your most simplest calculator, but your algebra and graphing calculators and
I just
even
go on
fraction
Google and say,
calculators.
Google, how much is this percent of this number, and it gives me the answer. I don't even have to use a calculator
Well,
anymore.
for me, at work, you know what I mean? When I'm reading a tape, when you're doing big numbers and with fractions and, trying to figure out your square footage and linear footage and stuff like that, I bust it out. And my boss is like, how the hell did you figure that out so fast?
Do you got a construction calculator?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. They're awesome. You can
What's
put in
a construction
feet.
calculator?
You can do
legit
12 feet,
legit.
6
You'd
inch,
think I would have
6.5 inches. You can do it, foot.
Especially
feet
because
and
I
inches.
get measurements of 6.6 feet. Okay, what's that point? Or I'll get 38.2 feet diameter.
That's decimal feet, is what that's called.
Well, I know, and I hate it.
Oh.
Because I'm not measuring in decimal feet. That's just what's on our drawings.
Yeah.
And I have to convert it to normal people feet. Or not normal people feet, but...
You have to convert it to feet and inches, not decimal feet.
Yes, that. That was the chair, I promise.
So anyways, back to our subject of lateral thinking.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Tangents are fun, but... So with these lateral thinking questions, we're kind of, like we said, there's ways to train your brain and stuff like that with lateral thinking questions. And basically what you're doing is you're forcing yourself to think outside the box. You have, you might have one question that makes perfect sense in one world, but when you think about it from a different perspective, there's another answer, and you might not see it right away, but that's kind of the premise of lateral thinking. So, have you guys done any? Other than before I brought it up, can you guys think of any situations or life scenarios where you might have had to maybe think?
I'll let
mean,
you go first. Go ahead, Steve.
I don't think I can't recall anything specific. No, but I mean, now that you've brought it up and kind of familiarized ourselves with it a little more. I mean, I know that that's kind of how naturally I feel like we're all kind of that way. That we're just like natural thinkers like that. That there's always, obviously you have your most obvious answer, but well, what if I look at it like this? I feel like we've always kind of been like that.
Right.
But I can't think of anything specific like offhand.
Like when we MacGyver stuff.
Yeah, whatever we come up with. I mean.
Like when you guys made this table.
Yeah, it's like a picture frame, but a table.
It's like a multi-use table that we just wanted a table, and now we're using it for notes and every little thing. One way that I could say, excuse me, that I've used it, I've had to use lateral thinking without even knowing what it was.
Right.
In the field at work, and with doing my normal 9-to-5 job, doing our when we're doing our tanks, and we come across an issue where it's like well, how the heck am I supposed to do this? Like it seems like a normal person can look at it like, how are you gonna do that? And it's like I have to figure out a way to get something done when the normal person sees it and is like, that's not possible, and I have to make it possible. I don't know exactly, for sure example, but I have to do that. Like when I was just in Utah, they were told to do it, certainly before I got there. I got on site and we ended up having to change everything around, but I had to make it work with what they already did, which I've never done before. And they were all like, well, this isn't going to work. I'm like, it will work if you just do what I say and pick up at these different points, and it'll all come into place, even though when they started doing it, it was like 30 feet away from touching the two outside posts, and they're supposed to be connected to each other, and they're 30 feet away from each other.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out, which parts to lift up at, and which ones to push and which ones to pull on the beams in order to make everything come together and fit properly.
Right.
So it's like, if that's a way, I'm thinking that's an example of lateral thinking of something to do or get something done that no one.
Well, yeah, we weren't exactly going by the prints.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't.
So like, it doesn't even have to be like, going by like your own directions or whatever. Like it's just more or less like doing something different than the normal way of doing things. So like my example that I could think of when I was working out in Blythe on the solar plant, I was on the rigging crew, and that was the first time I ever messed with rigging, was out on that job, and I picked it up like super quick, and I ended up being like one of the lead guys on the crew, and we had, one situation came up where I used my what would you call it? I used my like computer skilled background to go through and organize, because what was happening was we were just getting trailers full of like random pieces of pipe, and then we put it where it went. So I used my computer skills because they had 3D modeled sheets that you could look at and figure out where they go. So I figured all that out, and then I made a list in order what piece we need one by one. And so then we sent that up to the yard, and they sent all those pieces, one by one in order as I needed them. And I mean, that's not necessarily like outside the box, but it was something different than what we were doing at the time, and it worked out way
smarter,
better.
Not harder.
Yeah, we ended up putting in, and mind you, we're doing no less than 10-inch pipe. Most of it was like 12-inch. A lot of it was also like 40-inch carbon steel pipe, so it's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And there was one day we got like 12 or 1,500 feet in a day. Not like installed, but unloaded off the trailer and in a general vicinity
of where it needed to go.
Where it needed to go. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So.
Damn, 1,500 foot. That's quite a bit of pipe, dude.
I mean, you had some good 40 footers, but even still.
Yeah, but nonetheless, like you still, like you said, you got to rig it up, get it off the truck.
Yeah. Unload it up.
Yeah, unload it. That's that sounds like a long day.
Yeah. So, just reading, by the book here, I wrote down this thing. So according to Bono, critical thinking is about examining the pieces in play in any given scenario. So lateral thinking is about rejecting the status quo of ideas and conceiving entirely new ways of looking at a problem. It's about bringing new pieces into the puzzle rather than just working with what you have. And when we first started talking about this, you guys seen that movie, The Interns? No, The Internship.
Is that the one with Robert De Niro?
No, Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson.
You're thinking of
the Google one?
Google one? Okay.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that they did when they got the Google job, when they were talking about being trapped in a blender.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
And they just kept like rambling on. I mean, obviously it was for comedic purposes, the way that they were doing it. But one of the questions was like, what would you do if you were trapped in a blender? And that's the kind of questions that like companies like Google and Intel and a lot of those like higher tech industries, those are the weird random questions that they ask you. And I just liked how that they made it funny. I don't remember like the exact wording, but it was a good.
I don't remember that part of the movie.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So, we have a couple questions that we can do. If you guys want to look into that. So,
Can I ask the first one?
Kick it off.
I don't know.
So we have 7 questions right here that we looked up, but we don't know the answers.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
We don't know the answers.
I got 6 out of 7. The first one has me stumped. It says someone falls out of a 30-story building but lives. With luck and their landing pad not being factors, how could they have survived the fall? They tripped out of the first story? Doesn't say what story they fall out of. It just says it's out of a 30-story building. Right?
That's exactly
exactly it.
See, cause I was like, did they hit like a parrot? Like, did they hit something on the way down? Did they hit a bird? Did they take an eagle down?
Could have fell out of the first story window.
Yeah, okay. So I'm glad I got that one right then.
So, to give you guys a little bit of background there listening, I actually went through all 7 of these and read the answers. So that way,
I being Brian,
that by my voice, yeah.
Oh, people might not know our voices yet.
So I went through all these and read all the answers. That way, at least if anybody gets stumped or whatever, we know what the right answer is.
So do you want to ask the rest of the questions to each of us?
We can alternate. But I just wanted to elaborate on question number 1, because when I first read that question, I completely got it wrong. Like, I was thinking aerodynamics. Like, did they have a jacket on? Maybe they were using it as a parachute or something. Like, the jumping out of the first story window didn't even cross my mind at all.
It actually just crossed my mind right as we sat down at this table.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, maybe they didn't jump off the top of the 30-story building.
Yeah, but that's just what you assume.
Yeah.
That's what you assume. So that's kind of where it's a little tricky.
Should we move on to the next question?
So I'll go ahead and ask the next question. So there are a dozen eggs in a carton. 12 people each take a single egg, but there is 1 egg left in the carton at the end. How?
The baker's dozen.
No.
Negative.
Nice try, though.
One of the people.
Well, no, I mean,
one of the people. Okay, it says.
Nice
it says.
try, though.
Well, that's what I was thinking outside the box.
Okay,
It doesn't say what kind of dozen.
That's
okay,
true.
this is true. I'll give you that. But it says there's a dozen eggs in a carton. 12 people each take a single egg, so therefore there's 1 egg per person. Yeah. Obviously, somebody took the carton with their egg.
Well, there's.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Believe me, I was the same way. I was like, what?
Okay, but my thinking, like, you can't say my thinking wasn't wrong.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
No, that's the only thing that came in. It's like, there's a baker's dozen. That's how.
Yeah, but it specifies 12.
It does. Doesn't it? It says
12
eggs.
people.
There's a dozen eggs in a carton. It doesn't
Yeah.
say, but it didn't say there's 12 eggs. It says there's a dozen eggs.
Okay. So you kind of have a point. So that's another example
touche,
of thinking outside the
I'll
box.
give you that.
Kind
You want to ask the next question?
But then wouldn't.
That's fine. This one's kind of like, I feel like this one's kind of a gimme.
I was stupid at first when I read this and answered it. I was like, duh. And I was like, wait a second. No.
Okay, so a boat has a ladder that's 10 feet long and hangs off the side of the boat with its last 2 feet submerged in water. If the ocean tide rises 5 feet, how much of the ladder will be underwater?
It'll be 2 feet.
Correct.
Right.
When I first read that, I was like, 7 feet, duh. If it goes up
Yeah,
5,
I
it's
know.
2. It's like, duh, that's easy.
Simple
2
math,
plus
yeah.
5 is 7. I'm a genius. And I was like, wait a second, no. Because if the tide rises, the boat rises. So then
The answer
you're
stays
still
the
going
same.
to be 2 feet in the water.
Yeah.
That one kind of tripped me up. That was like, well, that one and the first one. So this next one.
I still haven't even.
Well, I'm gonna ask the question,
I
and then I'm
feel
gonna
like an
answer it. But then Brian has a different answer. He said that would work.
Well, you know the answer, so why don't you ask the question? Let Steve try and answer it, and then I'll try and answer it, and then you can answer it.
What do you mean you try to answer? You already know the answer, so you're gonna answer it.
No, I'm
Just
gonna-
ask
you're
the
gonna,
question.
Okay, sorry.
Just ask
so
the question.
the question is: there are 10 birds perched on a fence. A farmer aims his rifle and shoots one. How many birds are left?
The obvious answer is 9, but I don't know.
Why is it 9? Because there was 10, you shot
because
one
there
off.
was 10, he shot 1, so therefore,
Okay, so that's your
that's
answer.
that's the obvious answer. Okay, but now I try to further my thoughts into this, and I'm like, I don't know. I guess I just feel like an idiot. I don't know.
So
Okay, Brian, what is your answer?
So my answer is I thought initially I think the same thing, but if I'm trying to think outside the box here, there's multiple situations that come into play. What size is the gun? What angle is he shooting at the birds? Because what if he's shooting down the line of the birds, and he's using a pretty decent sized gun? He's gonna hit
like
one
a
and
Barrett
at least
BMG 50 cal.
he's gonna hit one. It's gonna go right through it and hit at least a couple more before some of them fly off.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
That was my answer, and that wasn't the answer that they gave at the end. The answer that they gave at the end was
It was that when you shoot at the one bird, the noise of the gun is going to scare all the other birds away, so there's going to be no more birds on the fence.
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. But what?
That's actually the first thing that popped into my head was that.
Okay, now having heard the answer that they gave, how you said that the noise of the gun is going to scare the birds away. See, now to kind of fold back to what Brian's thinking is, what if you were using like a badass pellet gun?
listen to
Something that's
listen to the question that it asks you though.
Just how many birds are left?
Meaning, how many birds are left perched on a fence?
that's what I'm saying. Is what I'm saying is that like.
But because you don't know how many he shoots, you can't answer the.
You can, yes, there's too many variables. There's too many variables.
So there's only one
define.
answer. None.
Yeah, because the noise, regardless of if you hit a bird or not, the noise.
Yeah,
is
regardless if
gonna-
you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 birds, there's still not going to be any
That's
left.
what I'm trying to say with
Yeah.
like the pellet gun thing though, because like I've shot at birds with my pellet gun, and my pellet gun's the equivalent of a .22 rifle, but it's not that loud. I've shot at birds before, and the noise of the off the barrel won't. I've shot at birds and it won't go nowhere. That's because my aim sucks. But
Probably. You weren't even in the
You weren't
vicinity.
sighted, yeah. You're shooting 6 feet above them. And
well, okay, but nonetheless. anyways, all right.
next question. Who's going to ask this one?
This one I feel I'll take this one. This one I feel like is like I don't know.
If you'd be
second, third
surprised
grade.
though, at how many people? Because I just went over this
I
with my
know.
girlfriend about 2-3 weeks ago. So the question is, what weighs more, 100 pounds of feathers or 100 pounds of quarters? And she was adamant on the quarters being heavier than the feathers. Like even when I explained it to her, it was still the coins are heavier. She's like, "There's more of them." I'm like, "No, there's actually more feathers." She's like, "Nuh-uh." And I'm sorry, babe.
I like how you're throwing your
apologize.
girlfriend
I
under the bus right now. Yeah,
apologize.
you're throwing his
But
girlfriend
I'm done.
completely under the bus right now.
I'm just trying to prove a point that it might seem obvious to us, but it's actually not obvious to a lot of people because they don't think of that weight. They think of feathers and the heavy object. Obviously, the heavy, what it is what throws people off.
It's a
Because
trick
whether
question.
it's 100 pounds of quarters or 100 pounds of dimes.
Doesn't matter. 100 pounds is 100
100 pounds is 100 pounds.
You might have less. Obviously, you're going to have way less quantity
Exactly.
of quarters. I mean, God, I can only imagine the quantity of feathers it would take to weigh 100 pounds.
Right.
Versus,
100 pound of coins.
100 pounds of coins.
Or 100 pound of rocks.
Or brick or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they both weigh the same. Is the answer to the question.
Yes, that's a good one. That's
So
a
the
good
next
trick
one,
question.
we'll let Brian ask. I figured the answer out, but Steve seems
I
a little
don't-
stumped on it.
I don't know
Okay.
this one.
This one,
You have to think.
actually, you kind of just have to think a little less than you think you have to
Yeah.
think. Which countries have the 4th of July out of the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Australia, and Canada?
Oh, this is stupid.
Now you get it right.
Yeah, I read
Now
it
you
wrong.
get it.
I read it wrong. See, when I initially read this, I thought it meant like what other country. Now that you read the question, what countries out? Yeah, duh, it's in the United States.
Oh, wow, Steve-O.
No, well, come on. It says which
Okay,
countries.
can I answer this, please? Can I please answer this? They all have a July 4th, dude. Every single one of them has a July 4th.
Yeah, only the Independence Day is in the United States, though.
So every
Okay, well,
country
why would you
has,
say July 4th if you're not going to specify?
Well, that's what
But
it's made to throw you off.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Trust me, I thought the same thing, and then I double backed, and then I was like, oh wait, it's all of them. It makes total sense.
Yeah, every single
Well,
country
it
has
makes,
a 4th of July.
It makes sense, but
The next
It's
question.
because you assume. It's because you assume the 4th of July is Independence Day.
correct.
That's why.
So the next question is: if you're alone in a dark cabin with only one match and a lamp, a fireplace, and a candle to choose from, which would you light first? Steve-O.
I'm gonna light the match first.
Exactly.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. The lighting the match is what's going to light everything else.
Exactly.
So now this actually made me think of another one. Do you have that marker we were doodling with? I don't know if these cameras are going to be able to see it or not, but just kind of between us, it's the they've asked like a bunch of second graders and a bunch of adults about which way a school bus was driving. You have the windows and the wheels. Which way is this bus driving? This way or that way?
Given the amount of information that you've lacked to provide, who knows?
Whatever way it wants to go. It's not driving at all. It's a picture.
Okay, it's in motion.
Okay.
So which way is it driving? To the left or to the right?
Forward? I mean, it could be in reverse.
So you're asking a specific left or
Yes. Is it going this? Okay, is forward this way or is forward that way?
If I had to take a guess, judging by your picture, I would say that this would be the front of the bus.
Brian?
Judging
I'm
by
gonna-
your picture.
I mean, it probably isn't right. I'm gonna say the other side.
Okay, Brian's actually right. You want to know why?
Enlighten me.
Okay, this is a school bus. Okay, there's no door right here to make it drive that way. The door's on the other side for the kids to walk up on.
Oh shit. I mean stuff. Oh crap.
Oh,
Yeah.
touche. I like it.
That's true.
See,
I like
it's
it.
like every second grader got it, and all these adults that were asked the question,
Well, yeah, it was the
only
last
like-
time we've been to school.
only like 1 or 2%. But it doesn't matter whether you're in school or not. That's like a common sense thing. Like you
well,
look
obviously,
at it.
obviously, you're gonna be a little bit more attention to detail with familiarities
Exactly.
throughout
True,
your daily.
true,
You know what
true.
I mean?
But yeah, so like that would be a form of lateral thinking, of thinking, looking at something, trying to figure out which way
Yeah.
it's going with what little information you're given, and then figuring out the correct answer.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like
The
less
easiest-
you think about it,
exactly.
the more
The more obvious,
Yeah.
or faster you're drawn to the answer. That's really good, though. I like that. That's really cool.
That was a good one.
Yay
I knew
me.
I was wrong
Yay me.
by my reasoning because the only reason I thought to guess the left was one, to opposite Steve-O, and two,
Because
Because-
one of you guys would be right. And one
well,
would
no,
be wrong.
because the way that you drew it, like it's a little bit more like squared
Oh,
off
that's
on
just
that
'cause
side.
that's 'cause I don't know how to draw.
Exactly. No, I know exactly, and so
I mean, I could have been like,
yeah, you could have made a box and then
yeah. It was just I was trying to even them out, but
Yeah,
I had
I
them
got
do
you,
perfect
I got you.
circles. I love that we figured. Oh, Maybe it's not a good idea.
You can use some Windex. And
Yeah,
it'll
I'm
clean
sure
it
with a
off.
little bit of Windex, it'll.
Yeah, it's a great idea though. This plexiglass is amazing.
You're welcome.
I can't believe we didn't think about this sooner.
I know, right? All right, so those were our questions. That I mean, we kind of just researched on the internet and found these questions. There's all kinds of websites and stuff that you can look up, anything like that. If you have a lateral thinking type of question, or maybe it's a kind of weird trick question, we'd love to hear it. I believe this is going to be on YouTube, so you can go ahead and just leave us a comment, and we'll try our best without cheating. We'll
I won't.
We'll do our best
I'll
to be
answer
honest.
him without cheating. I know Brian will look it up.
No, I'll look it up
You're a
if I
Google
don't know
master.
it.
Brian
No,
is definitely okay. I guarantee you, yes, he will put his efforts into not cheating.
But
the soonest,
but
the very second he's like, nope, I'm looking this shit up.
Yep.
As opposed to me or Andrew, I feel are the types that like I'll sit on that shit all month.
oh, so would I.
I'll sit on that
would.
shit all month and think like I'm figuring that shit out. Fuck that.
You got too much pride. I ain't got time for that. Moving home. Crickets.
Awkward silence. Insert here. Oh man, that was funny.
All right, so we've also come up with this a little section just to kind of, I guess, give you examples maybe of how lateral thinking can help you and how it's helped people start a business. Maybe they didn't even realize that they were lateral thinking specifically, because it's kind of a you kind of do it without knowing it sometimes. So I mean, it's especially useful in media and advertising, marketing and design and art for sure. But there's other industries that I believe, in my opinion, have come up with their ideas by lateral thinking, and one of them we all know all too well, or at least you should. Uber.
Sorry, I had to do that. I've been waiting so long just to yell that out. I knew that was coming. Uber! I'll be using Uber tomorrow.
Oh, they go to the game?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, Uber is one. Lyft is the same thing, basically. Dollar Shave Club is one. I mean,
If I shaved, I would use Dollar Shave Club.
Yeah,
that, or what's that other one?
There's a Dollar Beard Club.
There's a Dollar Beard Club, too.
No. It's it has a guy's name. It's Mike's or Harry's.
Harry's. Yeah. Which is weird name for a shave.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the opposite, right? You shave all your hair. But so yeah, those are Netflix is another one that was kind of like a first of its kind. Who thought about streaming internet movies on the internet?
Well, what about Hulu? Was it Hulu?
Hulu came after Netflix.
It came
Yes,
after?
it did. Netflix,
Okay.
I think, was the pioneer of streaming.
I don't remember. I think I first heard of
Don't
Hulu.
quote me on that, because I'm no Netflix genius. I just know how to use it.
In my opinion, Netflix was the pioneer. I mean, obviously there was there was a couple online live on the creators of Twitch TV. Those guys streamed. They started out. They streamed their life 24 hours a day. They just figured out a way. They put all their stuff in a backpack and recorded this one dude's life all day, and it didn't really take off because obviously you got so much downtime,
Yeah.
And eventually they came around to creating Twitch TV, and I think that stuff was out before Netflix. But I mean, as far as making that platform to where you can just log on, get all these movies, all these shows, in my opinion, Netflix was the first. So I didn't mean to cut you off. I don't remember what you were trying to say.
I don't either. I don't think any of us know what we were trying to say.
My bad.
I wasn't trying to say anything.
Oh.
So now the question would be is how have we used lateral thinking for ourselves? For Selfmatic, for anything we've done with Selfmatic or anything else.
It's one of those.
It's one of those things we don't know if we're doing it because we're just doing what we normally do.
Exactly. And what you just said right there is a perfect kind of quote for the end of our podcast, which we'll get to later.
Oh, I didn't even read that far.
But yeah, I mean, we all three of us, we mutually have interest in,
A lot.
doing, we all mutually have interest in a lot of things, which is obviously why we're friends. But, we just randomly, it was kind of just a random idea that came about, we all got into, and Steve-O specifically. Steve-O was the man that kind of started this venture, in my opinion. And, once you moved in with us, we immediately, I think it was a couple weeks or maybe a month, we started flying RC planes and drones and all this stuff. And I've done RC stuff in the past, trucks and stuff, and you were the one that got me into it.
I've never done anything with RC whatsoever.
That was really cool. The back in the day stuff. That was so much fun. God, that was so much fun.
We were talking about RC Airheads, by the way. No
so
one. Yeah, we haven't said the name. So pretty much what it is us as a group plus a few of our friends, with our love and passion of pretty much everything RC, radio controlled. We kind of coined ourselves the RC Airheads because right now it's all airplanes, drones. We don't do any helicopters because I think they're dangerous and I'm scared of them.
Yeah,
they sketch me out.
They're just spinning.
They're definitely hard to fly. I've flown a couple and I can fly them, but yeah, they're sketch, dude. They're sketch.
So we've brought this up in the past, talking about RC Airheads, but we wanted to just specifically get into, why and how this, thinking outside the box and basically how it started was an Instagram page. We just wanted to share the fun that we were having.
Yeah, it all kind of started with, I think it was... Well, I know that I would always do a lot of recording and because when I wasn't flying, I would always kind of, watch the feedback and try to, study it, if you will. Like, maybe I could have done this a little better, or maybe if I did this a little better. And then it kind of evolved into, well, hey, check this shot out. Maybe we can kind of edit this. And then, we kind of got into the editing, and that kind of started developing. And then it was like, okay, well, now my phone's full. So and then pretty sure it was my idea, suggestion, / idea, if you will, like, hey, well, why don't we start an Instagram for it? And I was like, you know what, that's a great idea. Yeah. So, and then it kind of just all evolved from there, and it's kind of funny because if you go check out the page, you can go all the way down to the bottom and see some of the first pictures. It's just a couple of still shots and kind of like.
It's really evolved.
It's definitely evolved a lot from
and not only has it
kind of horrible grainy still shots to nicely edited videos.
Not only has it significantly evolved, but quick.
It has been quick, and not even just the video editing, but also the flying and itself.
The piloting itself, everything.
Like I said, I didn't know anything about anything RC. I never had RC stuff growing up. Never had. I might have had those little small little RC cars.
The little ones with the little wires?
Yeah, like those. That doesn't count, yeah. So it wasn't until you moved in that, I went and bought that. We went to I was going to get a plane and I saw that drone. I'm just like, oh.
Oh, yeah, when we went to Pegasus?
And I was like, I'm going to buy this right now. And you're like, no, you're not. I'm like, yeah. And I walked out with the freaking drone. Yeah. And then, that helped, started with the, doing the aerial shots for editing, and that just added a whole new concept to
It brought a whole new side to it, yeah.
Not just recording from the ground, but also from the sky. You get a different perspective of what's actually going on from the top. Rather than from standing there. You know what I mean?
It's a whole new experience.
It is, and then after that, I bought my first plane, and I flew my dad's plane. For the first time.
Yeah, that's right. You flew the Sea-Wing.
Never flown
the Cub.
The Cub,
excuse me.
Never flown a plane whatsoever in my life. I get up, scared, but my adrenaline is just pumping. It was it's an experience that I only experienced with a few things. Snowboarding, does it to me, where I just feel free, and it's like that sensation of just something you just fall in love with instantly.
Yes, yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Now I'm 6 planes later, a big drone and a couple small drones, and
you get that feeling because there's no room for error.
There really isn't.
It's a styrofoam plane. If that thing comes crashing down,
yeah. If you don't put it back on the ground,
you've actually learned firsthand with your.
I demolished a $150 plane in like 2 days.
With after
like 2 flights,
with 5 seconds of flight.
Yeah. So I stick to drones now. But the one thing that really I took out of RC Airhead starting, even though it was like super random, it really got me started on like editing videos and being way more into that, because before RC Airheads, like I always thought editing was cool, whatever,
but never really was involved with anything to use it, any of it.
Yeah. And then ever since then, it was just like,
it's cool how one thing can open up a door for another.
So many others.
Like, you don't think that. It's like, but until you actually try something and then, push yourself to go after, what you think you might like, even if it's something you don't know, and it's like, that might be cool, let's try it, rather than like, oh no, I don't want to waste my money on it, or, I don't want to waste my time on it.
No.
You never know if it's worth that time unless you give that time.
Touche.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And you're not going to better yourself or get further in life if you just sit by and like, well, I don't want to try that.
It's so cool, man, because when I first got into flying planes, some of our other pilots, on the airheads, our buddy Chad and our buddy Darshan and BJ too, it's like Darshan has had I remember since we were kids, ever since I've messed around with RC, because I used to always mess around with, the stadium trucks, and for a while, me and Brian, we mentioned we were into the short course stuff, and, we had a track in the backyard, and we had lights, and we built our own little stand to stand up on, and it kind of came down to,
those racings got intense.
They got intense, dude. It was cool, but throughout all these years, I mean, I've been playing with RC since I was a kid. And I remember throughout all these years, Darshan always had this little itty bitty. It doesn't even look like a plane, other than it looks like a flying styrofoam plate, to be honest, with a prop on the front of it. Anyways,
you talking about the fixed wing?
No, you've never even seen it. I forget. I mean, this thing is like itty bitty, bro.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, so one day, Darshan and Chad were getting into these planes or whatever, and I kind of was like, yeah, cool, planes are cool, all right, cool, that's right on, but it looked boring. Mm-hmm. Until Darshan was like, well, here, try it. And I was like, all right, cool. And, dude, that was all it took. It was like, I want more. Like I flew the little one, and I flew it kind of good, and I was like, I flew it all right, and then I landed it like, decent, at least for my very first time ever flying anything. I mean, and this thing is so old school. There's no AS3X. There's no, it's just a little itty bitty 2-channel receiver. There's no rudder. It's just, aileron and elevator.
Right.
So, and I'm just like, I want more. I want to be good at this. Not only that, you know what I mean? And it evolved into all this, and even now, it's just like, it's so cool, because like when we watch, especially after you get done editing our YouTube videos, it's like, I feel like I relive that moment, and like it gives me chills and goosebumps, and like I just like,
and it makes me want to go make more.
It just makes me, I just strive for more, for those moments, for those feelings, for that rush, for I don't know, I dig it so much, man. It's so awesome.
You and me both.
I get that feeling, but so like when I just uploaded that video from Airfest, and that was like, I just bought this camera, this little point and shoot camera, and I took it and shot all that video, and so I remember editing it like soon after, but we just never uploaded it. So finally, I uploaded it yesterday or the day before, and I watched it again, and it did. It was like, man, that was such a great day.
Yeah, it was.
Watching that video back. But then at the same time, I'm watching the video, and I'm like, man, this video edit sucks. I'm way better than this now. And that was only 5 months ago. So I'm like, watching that back just made me like that much more driven to make more videos. And now I'm like even more excited for the next one that comes around, because I'm going to get way better video, Or at least hope so.
That's cool that you say that, because I take the same thing from it. You know, that's kind of why I mentioned, like, if you go look back on the Instagram, you know, you see some of the, like Drew said, some of the grainy still shots and everything else, and it's like, cool, this is where we were, this is where we are, and I feel like awesome, and I'm thinking to myself, like, where are we gonna be?
Exactly.
Like how awesome? I don't know, like I get the jitters from it just thinking about it, like.
Yeah.
You know, the potential that lies there, and even some of the ideas that we have in the works that, you know, I'm not going to disclose on, but, you know.
I'm super excited for those.
Dude, it's going to be epic.
I mean, I just found out about them like a week ago, and like you were just talking about the cool one, I'll say.
Uh-huh.
And like I was like, oh, this would be a cool shot. That'd be a cool shot. This would be a cool shot. Like to myself, not even talking to you guys about it. I'm like, I better tell these guys like what's going through my head, because they might have something totally different in store.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I was like, hey, wouldn't this be cool? Like, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't this be cool? I mean, I said a few things to you, Brian, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. And it's nice having everyone's input, because not everyone thinks about everything, and that's what's cool with all of us is like with everyone in the RC Airheads, and then even just like us as Self-Matic. It's like one person will have an idea, and then another one in the group will be like, well, you know, let's do that, and then also do this.
Yeah.
You know, let's
take
grow
this,
off of
let's
that.
take this and twist it.
You know, start it here and branch out like this, and you end up with this rather than just this.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool of having, you know, that support system with all of us, you know, as Self-Matic, as RC Airheads, you know, whatever else we end up doing, you know, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, it helps to have, you know, we ran into this situation earlier today. It helps to have that team, because that team kind of helps you get out of your own head of thinking like you have the right idea or you're doing the right thing. Then you show it to someone else and they're like, well, I don't know about that. You know, let's rework this situation. And then, you know, at first you're probably hesitant about it. I know I was, and then it's like you're trying to like explain yourself and like the reasoning why you did it this way, and like, you know, this is gonna work. And then the more and more you talk about stuff, it's like, well, you know, maybe you do have a point. Maybe you are right. Like, let's rework this. Let's work together and rework this.
Yeah.
It comes out better.
Yes.
So that's what I like about having the team and the camaraderie and everything. We just got to communicate. That's like the biggest thing.
The biggest part.
That is a big part, yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's for anyone even listening, is if someone's trying to give you advice, don't just stick inside your own head. Like, you might always be right. Yeah, it doesn't hurt to listen, and you know, whether you take their advice or not, like, listen and absorb as much as you can.
Yes.
Because the more you absorb, the more you can use in your life to help better yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always known, like, you know, going through the plumbing apprenticeship, I've always, because you work on so many different jobs going through work like that, you know, in construction.
Oh, yeah.
You work with so many different people.
Yeah.
And so many, like, from old people to, like, freshly journeyed out people, which journeyed out is like your certificate for people listening that don't know. And so like you take like little bits, you know, like you listen to this guy and you try to do everything right that he's doing, you know, and then maybe you meet another guy and they're like, well, this guy's doing it way better than the other guy was. And then you take that, you know,
you take bits and pieces here and there, and then you kind of build yourself in your own ways, how you like to do things and what works for you, you know, most efficiently, you know.
Yeah, because everybody's different. Everybody learns different. So
absolutely.
So on that note, we'll come to our third segment, and our third segment of the podcast.
Did you know anything about this, Steve-O?
It's in the outline, dude. If you just went down a little bit further.
Actually, I did.
So
you guys talk. I'll catch up.
I just had this random thought the other day. Since this is meant, you know, to like help inspire people, motivate people, you know, be a little bit of a learning experience when you listen to this show, I decided to do like an inspirational quote of the week. And for this week, we have a quote by Ray Bradbury. And if you don't know who Ray Bradbury is, he's a writer. He's an American fantasy, science fiction, horror, mystery films. He's most commonly known for his novel Fahrenheit 451. And the quote I think relates a lot to do with like what we're trying to brand or promote and stuff like that. So the quote is, "Don't think. Thinking is the enemy of creativity. It's self-conscious, and anything self-conscious is lousy. You can't try to do things. You simply must do things. So sometimes creative thinking is a good thing. Lateral thinking is a good thing. Sometimes
That's bad.
Sometimes, especially with myself, I know that I tend to overthink everything.
Sometimes you get in your own way.
And I get in my own way, absolutely. I shut myself down like, nah, what are you thinking, dude, you dumbass? That's stupid. No.
Yeah.
But, really.
Yeah, it's mostly like, you might think that this is a good idea, and then the more you think about it, and then you're like, well, maybe that's not such a good idea.
Yeah.
But if you just thought about it and went out and did it, whether it was a good idea or a bad idea, it was an idea, and you did something.
And you learn from it.
Yeah.
You learn from doing, not from thinking.
The value of the experience.
That's pretty much what that
impactful.
quote is saying. Is
Yeah.
you learn from doing, not from thinking.
Yeah.
You can think all day long until you actually do it. You're not going to learn.
Exactly. So, and that's I feel like that's where a lot of jobs are coming from. Like, you can go to school, you can get your degree, you can get all this stuff in the world, but until you have experience, you ain't worth crap.
Yep.
You are worthless.
It's kind of cool you just said that, because I was talking to my girlfriend a couple days ago about her job when she applied for it, and how there's two people above her that had master's degrees in the job that she was looking for, and she didn't even have a bachelor's yet, but she had experience in the field that they were trying to do, and these other two people didn't. And that's why she was hired for the position. These two people that weren't higher than her, because they had the experience of doing it rather than just going and learning about it.
Yeah.
Like, so doing it actually does work out for you in the long run.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to kind of add to that, to kind of touch back to the Airheads thing, it's just like one of our pilots, how he got his job. How he literally just started. He applied for the job about a month ago, I believe, and then, they kind of reached out to all his... References, excuse me. Sorry, I was drawing a blank there. And, he had multiple interviews, and due to the fact that, he has experience and has played with RC his whole life, now he's got a job, fresh desk and office and computer and everything at one of the biggest RC manufacturers in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's amazing. It's awesome. Like,
that it all started from, cool. and he's doing something he loves now.
And he's doing something that he loves. He quit both of his part-time jobs, he wasn't miserable, but he wasn't happy, and he found himself a place to call home. Like, that's so cool to me, man. I vibe on that so much, dude. It's so cool. I'm so happy for him.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. It's a good gig. So, on that note, this is the end of our show. If you enjoyed what you saw, go ahead and leave us a like, leave us a comment, and if you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe. And follow us.
Yep.
On YouTube, Selfmatic Podcast. Instagram is just at Selfmatic.
Selfmatic. So is our Twitch.
Our Twitter. Tweeter. It's at We Are Selfmatic.
Twitter. Sorry. I honestly, I had a whole brain fart right there for a second. And then also, weareselfmatic.com.
Weareselfmatic.com. Don't forget to go there and check everything out.
Check us out.
All right, guys. Hit the like button. Peace.